Hey guys, welcome back to another Vanguard video. Today we're talking about the brand new Granfia Julament, but unfortunately, he's a double rare. I don't know why they did this. I'm assuming deck space, but I do feel bad because you can't get him in FFR. You can't get him in FR, you can still high rarity Granfia. It just feels really weird that they have a boss unit. Like even Eugene had a triple rare. It's really strange that this is a double rare, not a triple, but yeah. Very strange treatment, but the new Granfia is an upgrade, so basically new Granfia basically discounts the cost and basically gains Persona Ride, and then the new Noblesse token basically has the act to basically guard once returned, kind of like Bab's Shield, by getting rid of your extra tokens. So let's have a look at Granfia Julament. It's not the worst thing in the world, honestly. I don't want to doom post because I actually do think this is a pretty big upgrade for the deck. It's a number 2 abuser of Rosarium Fairies besides, Lianorn Masque, which is like the hot thing people are on, especially after that Osaka top in JP. So, besides that, Granfia is the other deck that's doing that, and this does help add a little bit of defense to the deck. So, when placed by writing from 11 Lord Granfia, you activate Persona Ride until end of turn. It gets all the original auto abilities of that unit. Then all plant tokens and Noblesse tokens on your rearguard circle become plant tokens, and then you call a Noblesserose Rosarossa token, which is the new version, to your back row center, and all of your plant tokens become face-up gauge for that unit, basically. So, essentially what you're doing is you're doing that for no cost, because on the original Granfia, you had to Soul Blast 1, and then, of course, you're still getting that end of battle skill to, put 1 or more up to a total of 5 Noblesse tokens or plant gauge and drop, choose your rears, gets +5, and then 3 more, you get to stand that unit. And then at the end of turn, you ride the original Granfia's Rest, and then if you rode, you put this card, so basically the Persona Ride copy, back into the unit's plant gauge. So you're basically getting 1 plant gauge for free and saving 1 soul, which is pretty nice for the deck. Maybe not exactly what the deck needed, and I think the Noblesse token is a bigger upgrade, so we'll get to that next. So now we have Noblesserose Rosarossa, and so this is basically the old Noblesserose token, but you have the auto rearguard circle once return, the last skill. When your Vanguard's being attacked, you can cost discard any number of plant gauges from this unit, and for each plant gauge discarded for the cost, your Vanguard gets +1 cancel out of battle. So really nice defense for Granfia. Not only is Noblesserose, your token, Rosarossa, gonna be like massive to be copied off basically Rosarium and hit like crazy numbers like 50 plus and whatnot. Your opponent does have to be on grade 3 for Rosarium to activate, which I think is a little bit of weakness compared to like, Lianorn Masque, which will take second, and Granfia, where you probably want to go first, not to get your face shoved in. But yeah, this is really nice because you're going to have a lot of plant tokens stacked easily, and of course, when you Persona Ride, you're going to get that 1 extra when the Granfia goes into this token and you ride the original. So, this 5k can add up pretty fast. It kind of sucks that it is once per turn. They did limit it like Bab's Shield, probably so you can't spam it because, building plant tokens would maybe make the deck defense a little bit too much. So kind of sucks they didn't give a little bit of more, versatility there, but still really good. And then you do have the Shower Onion from the promo, which will basically make this immune to being targeted by effects once we get that in English. So honestly, really solid stuff because Rosarossa will be like 50 plus. Unfortunately, like the Blast token, which is only 5k, it's easy to it's not easy to attack into because it'll be like really massive because it's getting +5 continuous during your opponent's turn for like every single plant gauge that's in there. So compared to Blast, the weaknesses aren't as there to like, let's say like bombardment for the token being attacked. So Granfia gets a little bit more defense from this, and I think it's a really solid upgrade, just maybe not exactly what the deck needed. And I do think if it wasn't once per turn, this would be a very, very big upgrade for the deck, but it's a little bit of a minor one, especially because you do have to wait for that promo to come in basically August, September for the Shower Onion. So the last card is Yancha Pepino, and this thing is like pretty straightforward. During your turn, when this card is discarded from hand, if you have Vanguard with Granfia, you put this card into Soul, and then act and drop. If you have a rear with Noblesserose, its card name, you cost remove this card, get a free plant token. So kind of like your cycler of the deck, without having to use any energy or soul early, because of course you're still going to use your mushrooms or whatever cyclers to get a hand. So you still have to set up Rosarium and maybe playing Elvina. I'm not sure what Granfia lists look like now. I assume Elvina is just good in like every Stoichia deck, but like I haven't asked my friend for Granfia list, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, really solid card, honestly, for like a comment. I'm not sure if Granfia is playing this, but you definitely are playing the new token because it's just a straight up upgrade because you can get rid of your gauges in case you need to live and guard. And then new Granfia, again, as we said, is really good because you're not having to pay that Soul Blast 1 cost on the original essentially, because you're basically already getting that from the Julament place. Like the first skill when we had them next to decks, active Vanguard Circle once a turn, you have the Soul Blast 1 for that. For this, you don't really have to do that because it's already doing that with the auto. So yeah, honestly, really solid stuff. You do get to save some soul. And next up is Argo Siren. Okay, so Argo Siren got 2 new cards. So we have the first one, which is Kuresh, and is the auto during your turn when it's discarded from hand by your ability of your card. If you have Vanguard with Argo Siren in its card name, you cost put a normal unit with a different card name from this card without Sentinel from drop on the bottom of the deck, and this is because you can search them basically from deck with the Van skill. And then put this card into Soul. You choose one of your Vanguard's auto abilities, and then you perform one of the following. So reduce the cost of chosen ability by counterblast 1 until end of turn, or reduce the cost of chosen ability by energy blast 3 until end of turn. So basically what you're doing is getting rid of one of the costs for Vanguard to either CB1 bind in tiding order, or if your Vanguard's grade 3 reader, to choose 2 tidings instead of 1, for the basically restand skill. So, you know, you're basically setting up an easier turn for yourself with this card, and then his continuous back row during your turn. If you go through your greater Vanguard with Argo Siren, all your other mermaid into your dragon, same golem, get +5. So really solid stuff. You know, you're getting really fast power acceleration with this because you're basically discounting either the CB or energy. It kind of sucks that you like basically have to ditch 2 of this to get both of the effects off, but like it's not hard once per turn. Even if it was hard once per turn, it would be like once per turn per card, so it wouldn't be too big of a problem. But yeah, putting Argo Sirens back to deck, you know, wasn't too big of an issue for the deck before, but, you know, it's even easier now with this card. So I think this card's a solid addition for the deck just because you're saving yourself CB1 or Energy Blast 3, so now you can afford your energy on, let's say, like the Combine Rusher of the deck or like something else in the deck. And then, of course, saving CB is always good, so you can always send that to like CB draw 1, and then getting Tidings into drop is like super easy off the ride line. So the deck's game plan is like, I wouldn't say more consistent now, well, actually a little bit more consistent. And then of course you have cheaper costs, and you know that's always good to be discounting your Vanguard skill cost, you know, in the game, especially when you get to the late game and you don't want to burn so many resources, because it basically gives more freedom for deck building, basically, of what Argo Siren rears you want to be playing. And then the last card is Strait Scale Dragon, so it's continuous. If you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren its clan name or only Aquaforce for its clan, it gets all the following. When it's placed on regular circle, you can energy blast 3, ditch an order from your hand, draw 2, and if your opponent's Vanguard's greater through greater, it gets +5 until end of turn. And then auto regular circle, when this unit attacks or standby card fight, if your Vanguard's greater through greater, it gets power +5 until end of turn. So, you know, using the new card, you can energy blast 3, or basically discount your advanced skill by energy blast 3, so you can save your energy for cards like this. And this is basically just, you know, ditch 1, draw 2, because you are playing a lot of tiding orders. I believe it's around 5 to 7. I know Maelstrom is only playing usually 3, maybe 4. So I'm not sure why this works for only Aquaforce, maybe Thavas deck set, Copium, like I wish. But yeah, really strange that this, you know, does have that. I mean, I could see this being really good in a Thavas deck set. It's just really strange that it is only getting 5/5. You know, once you stack that with Argo Siren's Vanguard skill, when you know, if your bind zone is 1 or more hiding, gets +5, and 2 or more gets, you know, all front units gets +5 instead of just this unit. You know, he's reaching 25 basically, so hitting over defensive. So yeah, honestly, solid card. You know, drawing 2 is never bad. You get to pitch your 0 shields out of hand. So I think this card might help mitigate the early game a little bit better than the card before that was drawing for Argo Siren, where you basically had to like spend that CB and be like in a really awkward early position with your orders. This instead just helps you, you know, simplify things. You know, just it's kind of like Bav where they just dish an arms for you can shed draw 2. Like this is basically what this is doing for the deck. So honestly, really solid upgrades. It looks like Argo Siren got better cards than Granfia, arguably. I think the new Granfia is really good in terms of saving you resources, but really it's only getting you 1 more plank gauge and like Soul Blast 1. And I don't think that was the biggest issue for Granfia because you were probably playing mushrooms and other things that was getting you soul anyways. And the new Noblesse token I think is really nice. I do wish it wasn't once per turn, but maybe the development team looked at that and thought, like, you know, this would be way too good. But, I mean, they've already hit Zorga orders and other stuff, you know, in Stokea with their Rada and JP. We still don't know if we're going to get that in English, likely, but, you know, we don't know for now. So interesting that this happened. I do think that Granfia mains definitely got shafted. I feel like terrible. I don't know why they made him a double rare, but, you know, it's not completely over. I do think the stuff is an upgrade, and again, I think the Noblesse token is a solid upgrade, especially once we get the promo. That'll be really, really strong because it's basically impossible to interrupt the Noblesse token, and like as soon as they live, they basically as long as they can have a giant rear that they can restand, you still have to deal with like massive attacks, and then of course, you know, the Noblesse token plus Vanguard is going to be a massive column as well. So kind of a little bit less utility compared to, you know, Lianorn. I think Granfia has a little bit less of an early game when you compare it to Lianorn, especially when Lianorn has so many cards that like easily draw 1 and make tokens, and then, you know, you also have the mass package to like blind take second Persona Ride, which Granfia doesn't have. You know, I'm not here to make comparison between Granfia and, you know, Lianorn. Lianorn Masque, I don't really want to make those kind of comparisons, and that's not what this video is supposed to be. But yeah, this is me basically just ranting on. I think it's still solid stuff for the upgrades for the deck. I think if you're a Granfia main, you're probably pretty happy with this. You know, maybe not happy that he's a double rare, but I think it's still quite the upgrade for the deck. So do let me know what you think if you do play Granfia, and same for Argo Siren. I think these cards are pretty solid, and, you know, for a very short live stream that was pretty much unannounced, and we're also getting Magic World on Thursday, and then next week is 100 Demons, so we'll definitely be alive for that. But yeah, really excited to see how that goes for the reveals, and yeah, let me know what you think of these reveals, and I'll see you another time.